Welcome to the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement Accelerator Series. Virtual forums designed to help educate and inform individuals and organizations about the services and solutions they provide to facilitate talent pipeline development and establish innovative registered apprenticeships.
I'm Robert Weinman, Director of Workforce Innovation at the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement, or NIICA, and we're pleased to be leading today's discussion. This event is brought to you by NIICA's Workforce Education, Career, and Apprenticeship Network, or WeCan, our national platform within the National Center for Skills-Based Learning that shares best practices, connects partners across ecosystems, and moves from talk to execution. We're going to be talking about that today. NIICA's mission is simple and urgent: to ensure the nation has a talent pipeline with skills to support industries vital to U.S. national security and global competitiveness. The people who build, operate, and maintain the infrastructure our economy runs on. Data centers, which we're talking about today, are at the center of that. We lead employers, educators, and public partners through design, registration, and launch of registered apprenticeships that are built around real operations: your tools, your safety protocols, your shifts. And when you're ready to scale, NIICA can serve as a national group sponsor to support a clean, multi-site rollout. Today, you'll hear perspectives from education, workforce, and industry. Our focus is practical, where apprenticeship fits in the data center environment, how to start without disrupting uptime, and how to measure what matters: time to productivity, quality, and retention. If you're exploring a data center registered apprenticeship or ready to stand one up, please talk to us. NIICA is actively helping partners launch and scale programs in this space. A quick note: we won't have time for live questions during the session, but for general questions or to continue the conversation, you can email us at info@niica.org, and our team will respond. Now, I'm really excited to introduce our panelists and partners here. We'll start right along with Allie Burton, who is an executive and founder at Borgia Counseling, who has worked at the intersection of workforce and critical infrastructure. She led talent strategy inside major builders and now advises developers, operators, and investors, helping to translate business goals into training systems that actually deliver. Next, we have Carrie Getz. Hi, Carrie. It's good to see you here. Carrie, I'm sure some of you know all these names actually very well, but Carrie Getz is a practitioner and author who has spent years, we won't mention how many, making data center careers more accessible. Jumpstart Your Career in Data Centers and her other titles give people clear on-ramps into mission-critical roles and helps employers widen the funnel in a practical way. Next, we have Beth Saccone. She is a knowledge and proficiency specialist at EdgeCore Digital Infrastructure, where she designs and manages training as part of the operational excellence team. She's a former teacher who moved into data center operations as a technician and program lead, and she brings training meets operations lens, how to turn day-to-day work into engaging, mentored learning that sticks and prepares operators for mission-critical environments. And finally, we have Josh Labrie, and Josh is director of Nova Systemic at Northern Virginia Community College, where he leads STEM outreach, CTE pathway development, and regional partnerships. He oversees a portfolio of Department of Labor and National Science Foundation and private awards supporting STEM and career technical education pathways across Northern Virginia, including focus on semiconductor and data centers. Also, Josh is now tasked with taking what they've learned in data center training and expanding it out nationally. So we're very happy to have all the partners that we have here. And yeah, let's get started. I'm going to start with a general opening question. To help us get started, I want to put this question out to the full group. So in a minute or less, because we're tight for time, tell me, for data centers and related tech infrastructure, why do earn and learn models such as registered apprenticeship or pre-apprenticeship or internships and even upskilling matter right now? What do they deliver that direct hiring and short courses don't? Let's start with who I'm going to let you volunteer if anyone wants to take that on. Thank you, Carrie.
So I will say this: one of the problems that we have in the data center industry and the mission critical industry is that college curriculum has not kept up. Apprenticeships are a way for a lot of people to get started in the industry. And to be fair, this is probably one of the longest ongoing apprenticeships that we've had anyway, because the curriculum's not there and we have learned from each other. So we just need to bring more people into the fold, and raise awareness and help more people understand the industry. But I do think that this is a great pathway. There's a lot of people. How are you going to join an industry if you don't know what it is? Right? So
Yeah.
apprenticeships are a great way to kind of learn, figure out where you are. You can always pivot, go left, right, but you'll have applicable skills and applicable experience that'll travel with you. So I think they're a great onboarding way. They're a great place to jump in with both feet, learn the ecosystem, learn what's around you, and then do like I did and go see the world.
Awesome. Thank you, Carrie. So now I'm going to get it from Ali, the entrepreneur's perspective on this. Tell us a little bit why earn and learn models work versus the traditional methods of getting talent into the pipeline.
Oh, hi, Robert. Thank you. Yeah, I would double down on what Carrie says. There's definitely some traditional barriers to education that we need to scale. But I think what I would probably say is the most important, probably what I'm most passionate about, is that apprenticeships open doors for people like veterans and women and underrepresented groups. And I think that makes our country more competitive. And frankly, this is an industry where we need to be running fast, all hands on deck. And so as an industry, I don't think we can afford to leave any talent on the sidelines. And that's what I'm excited about what you and the team are doing. Yeah.
That's awesome, Ali, and I really appreciate that. Is that recognizing that as a nation, we have a very, very, very deep pool of talent. It's just that are we building structures and opportunities for them to actually advance into, like Carrie said, industries that they don't really know much about. So that's awesome. Now we're going to throw it over to a training innovator. Beth, I really would love to hear, because you've had a great journey personally on your for yourself on this, but engaging and how you do that engaging type training and how that ties into this question.
Right. So I really think, and I really appreciate what both Carrie and Ali have already said. I think what's really important here is that we don't just always focus on a student maybe coming out of high school, which that's perfectly a great place to get started. But we have a lot of people in the US that's looking for a career switch. And that's what I was. I was looking for something to do that was completely different than what I was doing. And I didn't know kind of where to start. And so I was lucky enough to find and work through Nova Community College to get into my very first tech role. But there's a lot of people out there that's just looking to figure out, what is this data center industry? They've heard about it. Maybe they're doing jobs that are kind of on the outskirts of it. Maybe it's, a little bit of HVAC or electrical, but they're like, what's really going on in this data center? And through an apprenticeship, they can really get in and understand how their skills already apply. And even as a teacher, I was able to find that my skills, they were applicable in the data center industry as well.
Yeah, I love that last sentence you said, is that everybody has some skills to bring to the table, and it's easy to assume that, well, these skills won't be relevant, but they absolutely are in these giant black box buildings that we don't know what goes on behind them. Josh, I'm going to help you round this out, right? Because I'll give you the opportunity to round this out. So Josh is really working closely with, obviously with Northern Virginia Community College on this. So they are carrying the torch for how a community college can respond to this need. So here you go, Josh, your platform.
A couple things with earn and learn that really add some value are, if we take the student or the employee out of the equation at the moment, it's forcing educators and industry to collaborate, to work together. Because typically when you're looking at a pre-apprenticeship, apprenticeship, or even an internship program, you have someone doing training, bringing students into the pipeline, and collaborating with an industry partner. So what you're really doing is increasing the collaboration and networking opportunities between education and industry to strengthen the pathway. And then the students benefit from that. We had 13 students this last spring leave our pre-apprenticeship, go into an internship in data center, and 100% were offered full-time employment, right? So it's been a really great pathway. And through that increased collaboration between education and industry, you build a trust, you know each other. And over years of that, it really just becomes really that basis and that foundation for continued growth to mature a talent pipeline.
In one
That's
quick
awesome.
tiny,
Oh, go ahead.
one quick tiny last point, you're training people in your environment.
Yeah.
Which is so critical, right? You're not
Yeah.
unlearning behaviors from somewhere else. You're training them in your environment on your systems.
Yeah, exactly. I've experienced that. Is retraining someone that's been with another employer or another industry sometimes can be a challenge because you have to untrain some of that behavior, which takes a lot of energy. And Josh, what I really liked about what you said is like, as NIICA has worked in semiconductor industry and now data centers, one thing we've realized is that we have to create programs at community colleges that allows that program and community college to be adaptive and agile, but also resilient, right? So there's going to be up cycles and down cycles within their region. And I think that's what's neat about an apprenticeship. It gets people immediately into the job, and then they get some core skills from the community college and other providers that gets them to a performance level in that job. So thank you very much for being here. Ali, we're turning it over to you. I got a question for you. Ali from Borgia Consulting, can you talk to us about how data center employers generally look at sourcing and bringing on qualified talent? And it's okay if you're a little candid here, and your thoughts on how to learn and earn and registered apprenticeships are possibly a better fit for them.
Well, I think it's an and because you're never going to have enough pipelines. As a recovering talent acquisition leader in the data center space,
I love
I would
that.
say we will behind the scenes take any help that we can get. I would say, you know, past sourcing has been very focused on the military environment, and there's a lot of transferable skills. That's been an awesome pipeline for the data center space. Also builds some really awesome internal mobility within those sites. I've been honored to work with some really great people, Carrie, I know as well, and Beth. That's not enough, though. I think, Robert, you and I have talked about this quite a bit. It's how do you cast a wider net, and what are the types of people and process and product and systems that can do that? There's no right answer. There's just like everything. And from what I'm hearing from my clients is help faster, please. And they'll take any type of assistance they can get. And I say that because I don't know anyone in the built environment that don't think that apprenticeships are a great value, or that people that come out of those programs haven't created great value in our industry. So the acceleration of it and what you have all been able to do so quickly with the semiconductor industry and being able to pivot in the data center space, I think the biggest opportunity we have is how to get it out there to the crowd fast enough and figure out ways that we can accelerate you faster.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think
lastly, risk management strategy. You're future-proofing your business with an apprenticeship add to your talent pipeline. Sorry, Robert. Thank you.
I love the line there, future proofing. So we're gonna put that in some of our material in the future for sure, because I think that's really important. Is like you're growing talent, you're growing the talent the way you want it versus buying talent, you know, or what we saw in semiconductor industry is stealing talent. So I love that idea that it is a sustainable strategy, and it's also it's resilient in the sense of it's relevant when you're rapidly doing hiring, but it's also relevant when you're not necessarily doing hiring, but you're trying to upskill your workforce. So thank you very much, Ali. It's great to have an innovator looking at registered apprenticeship as a real strategy. Carrie, I'm going to turn it to the author now. So from your vantage point, what's getting in the way of more people choosing data center careers? Is it awareness or how the roles are described? Is it credential barriers? Is it like location and shift realities? Or is it just perceptions about who the work is for? And what can we change? What can we do to actually open that door so more people are looking into it?
I think a lot of it's a self-inflicted wound, right? For years, we didn't talk about data centers because nobody wanted you to know where they are because it was a risk. And so what the byproduct of that is that everybody did like I did and fell into the industry because it wasn't an intentional direction. And so when we teach tech to kids in school, quite often their only exposure to technology is coding. And coding is a very specific skill set. It's a good one. But the trick is it's only a tiny, tiny piece of that industry. And we haven't branched out into all the others. We need every skilled trade. We need, you know, every type of IT person, plus marketing, finance, all of this. You know, I don't think people realize the depth and breadth of the industry itself. But so, you know, there is a perception problem, but there are data centers literally everywhere in the US. You know, we get hung up talking about colos and the big data center cities, but there are enterprise data centers. There's data centers everywhere, and they're going to be even more because autonomous vehicles are going to have to communicate when they leave city limits, right? There's lots of precision agriculture. There's data centers in the most rural places you can imagine because they're handling other tasks. So I think what we have to do is say, look, instead of people following in the industry, we need to make this more intentional. And some employers have started their own kind of apprenticeship programs and onboarded training, but I think we could do a much better job nationwide with the core skills, core focus, and just introducing it to people. I talk to students all the time. I talked to about 500 students not long ago, asked them how many people knew what a data center was. One kid. And I said, who in your family works in a data center? He said, my dad. So I think we have, we do have a little bit of an image problem in that every kid has a phone in their hand, but they don't know they're talking to a data center. They think they're talking to an app or to a human, and they don't realize that the data center is the critical piece in all of that. So I think we have a little education problem, a little awareness problem for sure.
Yeah, I love that part I keep thinking of, like, there's a particular diner in the town that I live in that very few people know about. They don't advertise, and they don't even have a name. But once you find it, you don't forget it, right? And
Right?
everybody there is kind of like, shh, shh, don't tell, right? Or else we won't have donuts by the time we get here, right? And I think that's kind of the environment we have right now with data centers. It's like this hidden diner that's right there in our neighborhood, and we don't even know the pathway to get there. So self-inflicted wound is a great analogy. Beth, you actually had I heard that Carrie fell into this industry. Allie's not going to tell us how she got into this industry, but I know in the entrepreneurial spirit, I can guess. I'd love to know a little bit about your journey, because you mentioned just in the introduction there about your own career switch and significant career switch into data centers, coming in with little prior experience. Thinking about that from the lens of other people that you're trying to reach and get into this industry, what types of hand-on learning is most valuable for apprentices and new operators to, like, quickly, once they're in there, gain confidence and feel part of the team? And I'm just going to extend that question a little bit. Also, from those that haven't landed in this industry, how do we let them know that these are relevant skills? That would be great to just understand that from your perspective.
Yeah, sure. I think that everybody wants to feel valued no matter what job they take. So when we are bringing in apprentices in, we really want to make them feel a part of the team. Now, in data centers, we really have to make sure that we are focusing on safety and security. Those are top priorities always. These are mission critical environments. There are, some big pieces of equipment around there you really have to be careful for. So that's our number one concern. But really, things like getting out and just observing with, another technician or a lead technician, and being able to walk around, start identifying pieces of equipment, start recognizing the space that you're working in, and being able to name and identify how to move about the building safely, name the different pieces of equipment, and then really start to say, okay, what skills do I already have that I could probably try to implement here? And so in my particular experience, right, I was a teacher. I wasn't working around technical equipment. I landed into the industry by actually helping to develop some of the coursework that's still being taught at Nova now. But I was a teacher then. And then when I was asked to take the course as a student, I thought, you're absolutely insane. I'm not taking, I don't know how to work in a data center. So I myself really understand walking into this big building and being like, what am I doing here? So once you get in there, then you start to see, oh, there are other transferable skills here. Things like, for me, organization, working with vendors, being able to talk to people and really dive into what are some things that we're missing here? How do we work and collaborate as a team? And so I would really just like to say, for anybody thinking about the industry, when you're coming in, don't be fearful of it. Recognize that you do have some skills, whether that's soft skills or technical skills, that you could transfer into that environment. Be curious, be a sponge, ask questions. I always try to tell that to anybody I work with or I mentor. When you walk in the door, recognize that you're a part of the team for a reason. So what is that? And then really just get in and like I said, just start taking in that knowledge, start speaking up, start asking questions, and then see where you fit.
That's awesome. So Josh, I want to come to you and then kind of circle back because I'm happy that we've got, more time than I expected, and I want to definitely come back and circle around with Carrie on exactly what Beth was talking about. Is like once someone's in this industry, let's talk about like some of the pivots they can do, and I want to get that perspective from Beth and Allie.
Right? We started with a 2-year. We realized a 1-year was probably sufficient in a career study certificate. And for many students early, when we were depleted of talent in our region, the one course was enough. We're now beyond that, where students and entry-level technicians need more skills. Now we're looking into pre-apprenticeship programs where students with no background or experience can come out, and after a year, they are prepared to enter industry, right? And start that internship and transition to employment. We're also working on the workforce side to have a shorter 4 to 6 week program for people with a background who can then, hey, I can take a little bit of coursework and transition quickly because, like Beth said, I have other skills that already connect into this industry. So what we see happening is that how much time students spend with us is getting shorter as we work closer with our industry partners to really get them involved in earn and learn models. And it's been super successful, right? We take students and educators on tours of data centers, and what we see when we walk around is like, hey, I was at Nova, good to see you again, right? So we actually can see the pipeline working from an entry-level tech, pre-apprentices, apprentices, and then up into management now, where we see our students have progressed over time. But we've shortened that pathway from 2 years to 1 year, and even less if you already have a technical background. So that's been really relevant. And I wanted to connect also, kind of going back to Beth's point on connecting, when we do our professional learning series and bring in faculty from other colleges, we start by saying, look, you don't need a whole data center program that teaches every little thing. You guys already have electronics, or you already have PLCs, or you already have HVAC. That's a pretty good core of what a data center program is. You can connect a lot of what a community college or 2-year college already has and bring in some specifics about the data center industry to tie it all together and build that industry knowledge, right? So that's where we took that kind of, how do you work and make things work together? You can pretty quickly have an earn and learn model, connect industry and educators in markets that are new to data center education. They have more of a start than they think sometimes. And so it's good to reinforce that with industry partners and educators in other markets. You might just be getting started, but you have a good basis. It's just realizing how to tie it together.
So I heard among the team here on this meeting, I heard some sighs and I saw some head nods, because I think, Josh, you nailed something there, is that we actually have a lot of the tools in place, even at the community colleges, that we can leverage. And the shift there too with registered apprenticeship is you're also leveraging the on-the-job training that people like Beth are designing inside these organizations. So that they're getting that contextualized, they're getting knowledge from the community colleges and some early exposure. And then within the apprenticeship with the OJT, all of that starts to gel around what are they doing in that job. So, NIICA, we use this often. We're like, when we work with community colleges and other education providers, we say we start with the job. So we do a deep dive into the job analysis and a deep engagement with the employer on like, okay, what is this job really? What do we really need the first 3 months? What do we need 6 months in? And what do we need to introduce, to Beth's point, what do we need to introduce in this first apprenticeship that is going to identify special abilities that they have where they might want to actually pivot somewhere in their organization, whether that be project management, energy management, or managing people, whatever that is. Carrie, I'm gonna throw this back to you as a veteran here. We're both kind of veterans, so I feel like I could say that. Tell us a little bit about so we've talked a little bit about registered apprenticeship as a gateway, getting them into that position, but we've heard a little signal here on let's keep the arrangement going that this learn and earn model or earn and learn model continues, and there is a deep partnership with community colleges in the region. How does that help an organization not just do a good first investment, but like really capitalize on that investment in talent and get the 100% out of them instead of like the 50% out of them where they might be misplaced in the organization.
I mean, I think to me, two of the worst things you can do as a grown-up are date and job hunt, right? It works for everybody.
Fair.
But think about that. People start jobs that maybe they're not necessarily great at. And one of the things that I think a lot of industries do, and we certainly do, is that we teach people how to survive or how to work in that particular job, but we don't teach them about the periphery. And the periphery is where the magic happens. It's where you figure out how you fit in the ecosystem, how the ecosystem interacts with you, and then you can figure out your position within that ecosystem. So maybe you start with servers and you're a server tech, and then you really get excited about figuring out the electrical paths and how it works through that, and you decide to go on an electrical apprentice. Well, you could take that and you could drop right into a data center, and now you have great skills with the server team, you have great skills on the electrical team, and by the way, those two functions have to work together for the data center to function. So you have now a very unique skill set. And I think the thing that we get hung up on is it doesn't really matter how you learn, it doesn't matter where you learn, it matters that you learn. And this is one of those tools to help people get that foundational knowledge. And to be fair, a lot of companies are not going to train you in what that company doesn't do. Some of that ends up being on your own. So those good generalist programs, if you can add a data center specialty to an HVAC guy, add a liquid cooling specialty to an HVAC guy, add a data center generalist to an electrician. Now what we've taken is, hey, here, Mr. Tradesperson, here's your skills. Here's a career for you and where you can use those. And by the way, you can do it anywhere in the world. They're never going out of business. We're always going to have technology. The trick is you just have to figure out what part of technology you like and realize that it might not be in coding. It might not be the electrical. Maybe it's in sales and marketing. Maybe it's in one of those other things. But this whole industry as a whole, we're so connected to it. We cannot function without it. And we really have to start talking about the multitude of careers. And I honestly think this apprenticeship, it's a good kind of national draw a line in the sand. Here's where kids from any background, any place can go and learn about an industry where they will have a job forever.
Yeah. That's awesome. It brought a little tear to my eye, actually, Carrie. And one thing I really like about that is the concept of stewardship of your workforce, right? So it's a lot. The cost of acquisition to get someone in is very challenging, and it's an unknown investment. Once you get them in and they are performing, the question of where can they perform more? And really what we look at is we're looking at different ecosystems across the nation is number one, how do we get them into the job sooner and safer, right? How do we get them into the job so they can start exploring? But then how do you, the retention aspect of how do we keep them with the employer? If we can't keep them with the employer, how do we keep them in the region? If we can't keep them in the region, how do we keep them in the industry? And those are those strategies where a registered apprenticeship really has that deep engagement where the employer isn't alone in figuring that out, nor is the talent. You have education providers that have already engaged in getting that person onboarded, such as your community colleges, and you can reinvest in them and bringing them to help come up with an idea of where this person is best placed and how to move them forward. So I think that's really important because data centers are not alone, right? They're sitting in a lot of the same regions where we have battery manufacturing, hydrocell manufacturing, we have semiconductor industry is desperate for talent. So it's difficult to really kind of come up with a plan that is going to retain that talent. And the best way to do that is to have an advancement strategy for them. And the best way to advance them is to identify what are their core skill sets. How do you enhance those and then have them ladder up within the organization? So
and it builds loyalty that way too, right?
Yeah.
If you invest in your employees, they stay.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest problems we have in this industry right now is companies poaching talent from other companies and not growing their own. And if you invest in that talent and invest in your people, they stay with you for very long periods of time, provided you compensate them accordingly, right? But it's important. It builds that loyalty.
Compensation is important, isn't it? Yeah.
It is.
Fair.
So if I could just add something,
yes,
Karen, you said something.
absolutely.
So I also recognize the fact that working in the industry, it's not just you're poaching from each other, but you're also poaching from vendors. And so I find that to be something that we struggle with as an industry, is where intentionally or not intentionally, you're pulling people away from vendors and contractors that you're using, and then you're looking for more help from your vendors and contractors, but you happen to be taking some of their people that are
Yep.
really amazing, and you're providing them those opportunities. But with the apprenticeship, you're building them from the ground up, right? So you're able to have your own pipeline. So that's something. It's not just, it's not just company to company, but we're also taking from our contractors and vendors that we're working so hard to maintain those relationships with.
I mean, that's kind of the equivalent when I go to Home Depot, and even though I planted tomato seeds, I went and bought the ones that are already fully baked. I can just put in the garden and say, yeah, I started those. The loyalty for those tomato plants is just not there, right? So, Ali, I want to come back to you, and I just, I'm going to give you an open question, but I do want you to maybe give us a little bit of lens of like, who comes to the table to develop an apprenticeship? Who should we have like at the table? How is that like different than the traditional, talent acquisition strategies? What is in that mix to really make an apprenticeship work? And maybe even if you've got time, is just talk a little bit about how is that maybe different assembly of people at the table become an advantage for the organization and the talent. I threw a lot at you.
Yeah, I know that's a big one. No pressure. Thanks, Robert. I would say it's not, I am passionate about it. I'll gather my thoughts here. I really believe that the more people you can have that are passionate and educated about this topic at the table provide even better partnerships and chances for acceleration in education.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the accountability is something that we all see a lot of fingers pointing back and forth. Beth, I'm sure you even saw this in the school districts, right? Where who's responsible for this? And in most HR teams, at least in, the construction companies I work for, they're asked to do a lot of things. And not just de-risk the company, but also drive culture. And then they're also supposed to think of 10 years down the road, how are we going to get, this skilled labor in place? And that's a big ask for anyone. And then if you think about all the different types and sizes of businesses that feed the data center, power space, they're all over the board in terms of size and ownership. And if you're a solo operator, it is really hard to pull your head up and ask for an apprentice or get involved. So I find that if you can get both HR, learning and development, functional training, standardization, legal, finance, and whoever signs the checks, which is probably the most important person in the room, you could probably accelerate it faster. But people are busy and you have to get their attention, and it's hard to do. I think we all feel that as entrepreneurs and working in the nonprofit space as well. So I don't know if that answered your question. I just see this as something that all of these companies really want, but it's not often their core business. So maybe I would turn the question back to you, Robert, and say, how do see how that works? 20 years of HR, you're welcome.
Total Aikido move, I get it. Yeah, no, I like.
How can companies work with organizations like yours? I think I've seen the benefits of public partnerships and a lot of workforce initiatives. Carrie and I have spoken about this. How can they accelerate faster since it isn't their core business and they are already overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I think the good news is that it and this might sound like a plug, but info@NIICA.org is like one step you could do to really get this launched. And the reason why I'm doing that is not for the sales pitch, but to also talk about like it's forming those partnerships. And what you alluded to there, Ali, was I love the part you brought in legal and who signs the checks, right? They have to come to the table at some point and say, what's the ROI on that? And ask those questions quickly, right? And up front, so we can design apprenticeship that way. Really what we're looking at here is an integrated design approach, right? So we have all stakeholders at the table with all different lenses to at least kind of understand what is the value proposition of apprenticeship. and what are the mechanisms to make it happen, then some of those parties back up and say, good, it's worth investigating, let's do that. And then the other thing it does is it really creates an integrated design approach, not just within the organization, but within the community. Like, okay, let's start this with the local community college. Local community college has a great partnership with some workforce partner that can really very easily broadcast this out and get a lot of interest, right? Might even have some funding to help launch this, right? A national partner like NIICA can come in and say, well, here's some best practices that we did in state X, Y, and Z. Here's some things that we don't want to repeat that we did in state, A, B, and C, right? Those sort of things are really important to help inform the process. But I love the idea of integrated design within the organization for an apprenticeship, and then also a deep engagement in integrated design for the community so that we have a sustainable strategy. That really is what I think is very interesting about apprenticeship. Now, I'll say this just real short. I worked for 11 years in community college, and we worked in CTE and ATE. And one of the things we all were required to have is an industry advisory panel. Guess what? We met once a year. We spent half an hour talking about the donuts. Then there was a little bit about the faculty presenting out, this is what we designed. I hope you like it. And that was the end of the engagement. What we accidentally discovered is we started getting engaged on how to do incumbent worker training. And that incumbent worker training, which Josh has talked about, I'm going to hand this to you in a second, so get ready. But incumbent worker training started giving us the lens of so wait, what we're teaching has nothing to do with the job? And the employer's like, yeah, welcome, wake up. There you go, right? And then the other thing that we discovered with incumbent worker training was, wait, they really don't need a degree to get up to a level 3, level 4 subject matter expert? Employer's like, not really. If we need them, we'll move them up. So, Josh, because Allie did the Aikido move to me, I'm Aikitoing over to you to maybe add a little bit more flavor to what I was talking about, is that responsiveness of the community college and other partners in the community.
Yeah, and I'll lead in with, we're launched a apprenticeship award from the Department of Labor, right, to build out a data center operations apprenticeship and doing a pre-apprenticeship programs, right, that ultimately lead into a registered apprenticeship. That's, I think, within a 2-year college's wheelhouse. We can marry some work-based learning with some academic coursework and figure out the length of time and do a pre-apprenticeship. And that's very much in the wheelhouse, pretty straightforward. We know how to do that. When it came down to developing a data center apprenticeship, it was reaching out to someone who has kind of that knowledge and industry experience. And I reached out to NIICA, before we even wrote the grant, to say, hey, we're going to get this apprenticeship application in for data center. Will you be a partner in it? And luckily they said yes. So we spent a lot of time, Robert and I, reaching out to industry partners to identify, hey, if we start with an entry-level data center operator, what are the skills they need? And to identify that and align it with different role codes. So you need a basis to get a competency approved in the DOL, and that's been accomplished already. But yet you still need what Allie references. You need HR in the room. You need the person who signs the checks in the room. I would say maybe we want some of the hiring managers or building directors in the room that understand this is a new talent pipeline. If you're having a hard time finding talent and you currently say, well, we have an internship program and we have a veterans program, well, an apprenticeship program is another pathway that you can continue to have a new stream of talent coming into your building, right? And so then how do you start that? How many apprentices do you hire a year? And that's where I think a national organization like NIICA or a similar national organization that might do apprenticeship work would be great to collaborate with, because there is work, right, with managing apprentices and documenting their hours and working with a college to make sure they have the appropriate coursework that meet, right, all the technical requirements, which aren't onerous, but they do exist, right? So I think you really have to have a sponsor who maybe has some experience. That's super helpful. Having a training provider that you can work with is really ideal. And then an engaged industry partner with both support at the manager level, at the HR level, and I would say, more at the leadership level to really encourage that apprenticeship to take off. Carrie?
Can I just throw something in here? I
Yeah.
think that, for a lot of companies that do tuition reimbursement, what they don't realize is for what you spend on reimbursing electives, you can stand up multiple apprenticeship programs and have that onboard of talent. And I do believe, especially where we are in the data center industry right now with growth, where we're anticipated to go, which is going to be kind of Katie bar the door here very, very soon, that having an apprenticeship program and having a bench of people coming on board is going to be a very, very big competitive advantage. I honestly think it's going to start being part of bids and bid documents. People are going to want to know before you start working on their 3-year project, what is your bench? What is your ability to bring people new on board, and what's your plan for your employee base? Because there is a lot of poaching and there is a lot of cross company movement, and companies are going to want to know that whoever they hire has that bench and can support them. I think it's going to be a huge competitive advantage.
Hey, Carrie, you totally nailed something. So we always talk about employers and competitive advantage. I think this is also for the education providers, the community colleges, is that if you don't have a demonstrated, deep engagement strategy with your employers, and that advisory panels, there's high variability. I know there's some really good ones out there, absolutely. But if you're not actually getting people placed into those jobs and they're staying in those jobs and they're advancing those jobs and still engaging with you as an incumbent worker, then those are parts that are missing to the puzzle that makes you competitive as a community college and competitive for like when you're seeking additional funding. Because as we know, AI is very much in focus right now, and AI infrastructure data centers are at the core of that. Same for semiconductor and energy, right? So having execution is very important, where you're actually placing people into those jobs, they're advancing up, and you're not meeting with the employer on some rare frequency, maybe a couple of times a year, but you're actually engaging with them on a weekly or monthly basis on like, how are our apprentices doing, how can we improve, how are they doing in classes, how are they doing on the job. That's, I think, absolutely key. I want to step to even like a longer pipeline view on this too, and I'm going to pass this to you, Beth. Is having come from education, I think you have a good lens for this, is like the high school CTE programs. What is their opportunity here? And if you could speak to that, both from the lens from the high school and the communities, but also from the lens of the employer, because you've been in both of those environments.
Yeah, it's interesting that you bring that up, because one thing is, ever since I even learned about the NOVA program to start with, getting involved with it, I always thought, how are we not connecting more with the high schoolers, the high school students, and having this pipeline directly? And I feel like everything does take time. But I've thought about this, I've talked about this in more than one setting, but there are these dual enrollments that high school does with community colleges. And I think that that's an opportunity right there, where you have students who are not necessarily interested in a 4-year degree program for whatever reason. This is an opportunity for many students that's literally in their backyard, right? Take advantage of what the community colleges have. If there is a dual enrollment, if not, I think that would be a great pipeline to start off with. I would say too that parents need themselves. We need to reach out to them. I feel like they're a huge influence in their children's paths, and sometimes I think that they think college is the way to go, right? And I think that they themselves aren't fully understanding the opportunities, the amazing opportunities that are in data centers. You don't have to end up being a technician if that's not what you want, but it might be the foot in the door. Starting off with becoming a technician, when I first started, I went from being a teacher to a technician, then to a coordinator, then to a project manager, and now to a knowledge and proficiency specialist. So everyone has a different path. And I think that that's an additional piece to know, that you might not necessarily think that data centers is where you're meant to be, but the opportunities available in data centers and the different paths that you can take, it's endless. And I just want to back up to what we're talking about with apprenticeships within the actual companies themselves. If you create a culture of learning and engagement from the beginning, And know that all of your hires coming in the door are going to have people there supporting their journey. That's crucial. And so understanding that if you have an apprentice that's there in your building and they're just kind of sitting on a computer, if it's in if it's a culture of learning, you're going to have other technicians, leads, and managers grab that apprentice and say, hey, let's go walk the floor. Let's go take a look at something. Hey, let's draw something up on the whiteboard. And that's all that they want. They just want to learn. They want to be a part of it. So creating that culture within the companies themselves is vital for your apprenticeship, for not only training them, but then retaining them.
Yeah, I I love that idea because, and I want to clarify something that always comes up when we initiate conversations with employers is the difference between internship and apprenticeship, right? So internship is an awesome tool because it allows you to bring someone into the workforce and they're there for a finite period of time and they're learning about the industry and they're really exploring. Plus, you're seeing their degree of fit at the same time they're gauging their degree of fit as a future employee, potential future employee of yours. A great opportunity for an internship, an intern that you like to land into is an apprenticeship. An apprenticeship is where you've actually hired the individual. They are a regular full-time employee, nothing special. They go through the same rigor that any employee would go through to apply for that job, get that job, and they have to perform to keep that job. But they are a regular employee, and it changes the lens for that individual because now they know that you are committed to them. And that's where, similar to what Beth was saying, is you need to demonstrate that not just by committing and giving a regular full-time employment, but are you giving them the exposure, not just in the performance critical to their job, but exposure in the organization where you can really find out what is their full potential. An apprenticeship offers structure. There's two components of apprenticeship that I think are really unique. One is structure, so structure to the on-the-job training, and then really well thought out, what is the related technical instruction that a community college can provide to empower that individual beyond that actual position. So performance in that position, but then what's their full potential. The other thing an apprenticeship offers in addition to structure is mentorship. And this goes back to what Beth was saying about culture, is your first cohort of apprentices, whether that's 1 or 20, they will each be paired with a mentor within your organization that has a little bit more experience in that industry, right? That's actually not too hard of a job. It doesn't have to be their hiring manager or anything like that. It's just someone that kind of familiarizes them and makes sure that they get exposure to the skills and experiences that they need to perform their job, but also some of the exposure to skills and ideas that they need that might help them really, thrive in that organization. The good news is once an apprentice has completed their apprenticeship in 12 to 24 months, whatever you decide, they are now qualified to actually be a junior level mentor where they begin to mentor the new apprentices. So you're creating a culture of redundancy, support, and advancement, but it's got structure and it's got mentorship to reinforce it. So you're absolutely getting the full bandwidth potential of your workforce. So thank you for
and also those mentors then themselves have now had a new experience that they can then take from. And I feel like, when you really start to understand your own knowledge when you have to teach someone else something. So when they are then kind of put in that position of mentoring and teaching, then it really helps to drive home their own knowledge and expertise, which I think is great.
Absolutely.
And they learn leadership skills too. There's soft skills that go with that too, in addition to the hard skills.
And I saw this in, working deeply in pharmaceutical and semiconductor, is a lot of the leadership programs are focused on C-suite and maybe, managers and supervisors, but there's a whole nother set of leadership skills that need to be introduced at early career, how to communicate, how to understand what your manager is communicating back to you and how to respond to that, how to respond to feedback, how to give feedback. These are all things that, like Beth and Carrie are saying, is that helps a person identify earlier that this is a space for me and that I can actually thrive, in leadership roles. So that's really great. I really appreciate that. I'm looking at our time. We're at 2:50. I want to be respectful of time. I do want to do a quick closing statement, but I'm going to do it fast because I want to give everyone here on the panel, one final word, kind of like a minute each. And I think that'd be a great way to close. So, Josh, Ali, Carrie, Beth, I just want to thank every one of you for joining today. I think you all offer a unique perspective. And I would very much want to connect you with other people as they respond to this accelerator. Again, you can just go to info@NIICA.org, and we intend to have follow-ups to any type of questions and share that out. But our real goal here is to make sure that we're fostering registered apprenticeships and data centers across the nation. As you heard from Josh, his Nova is very focused on that too. He mentioned the grant that they are working on. We're a partner in that grant, and that one of the key objectives of that is to make sure that we're sharing out strategies that we've learned in Virginia and share that out as a national strategy. What's really important here is that while we have regional aspects of what we do and employer customization for everything that we do, that we have a cohesive national strategy on how we execute and sharing of best practices and also whoops stories as well. So I want to thank everyone for that. Currently, as we set out to connect the dots, the talent gap is an operational risk where apprenticeship fits in the data center environment. We want to help you how to start responsibly, how to track that value, and how to like design so you have a shorter time to productivity, quality, and retention. The through line is simple in this whole presentation today is that start small, align training to your environment, put mentors on the floor, and measure what matters. NIICA is happy as a national leader in this space, along with the national leaders that we have on the screen here today, and turning this playbook into tangible results, meaning that we want to give people jobs and we want to see them succeed and we want to see them advance to the advantage of the ecosystem, the individual talent, and to the employer. So, please check back with us. We're happy to have a meeting and follow up with that. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Carrie and then Beth and then Ali, and then we'll finish up with Josh. And let's conspire to give Josh only 10 seconds, okay?
All right. I would say one of the things that I really hope people take away from this is not an either or thing. It's not an apprenticeship or college. In some cases, an apprenticeship leads you into the perfect job, and then you decide the degree you want. Your employer pays for it, so it leads to a college degree with no college debt. I'm saying that all of these programs, everything that you do is a tool, but there is no world that we're in right now where data centers don't exist. And you're missing out if you don't at least learn how they function, figure out where you fit. I promise you there is a job for everybody in this industry. Regardless of what you do, there's a place that you can fit. Seek it out and find it and talk to people in the industry. You'll find lots of people like me that'll tell you what a great place it is.
Thank you, Carrie. Can't remember who I said next. Go ahead, Ali. I can't remember. I'm sorry.
That's okay. Well, thank you. It's been an honor to serve on the panel with such amazing people. It's been great to get to know you guys. I think just if I was to close and say, this isn't about filling jobs. It's about building resilient teams and business and healthy communities and an industry that reflects the people it serves. And apprenticeships in lots of different ways can get you there. You don't have to go alone. You can team up with a peer group. You can hire somebody like me, for example, to help you do it, or one of the wonderful people on this call to accelerate those partnerships. So any action matters, but this allows you to invest in your people, not just projects, and therefore it just continues to perpetuate innovation in our industry and builds healthy minds and healthy communities. So please try to help accelerate the message if you can't take any action today. And thank you for having me, Robert and team.
Yeah, and that was helpful, Ali. So we have a team here. We want all of us on the call here want to expand this nationally, and we've got a process in place and partnerships in place to do that. And similar to Ali had mentioned, we talked about who do you bring to the table. If you're thinking about this from an employer perspective or community college perspective, and you're trying to figure out how to message this up the streamline, we have that expertise on the screen here, and we can help facilitate that while we have other experts within this team to design the mechanics of the apprenticeship. We have other experts on the team that can share curriculum approach with you. We have other experts on the team that have written books about this subject. We have other experts on the team that have designed super engaging strategies to get people into the industry and then elevate them within that organization. And speaking of that, I'm going to pass it to Beth. So your final statement. Go ahead, Beth.
Final statement is, one, this has been great conversation, really enjoyed it. Second thing is I want to say is this is a very welcoming industry. I think everyone is just looking that's in the industry now. Companies just want people. They want you to come in. They want you eager to learn. They want you to work hard, and they're going to invest in you. And then my other part is to the companies that are out there. Yeah, don't be on the sidelines. Really get in, get engaged, see what you can do to help support apprenticeships and the programs in your community.
Josh, you actually get more than 30 seconds. So here you go.
Hold on, let me start talking. Let's see if we can change it.
Just to echo what Beth said, the data center industry has been one of the most engaging and collaborative industries to work with. And as a community college, we have a number of people involved, and we all echo that sentiment that you all are great to work with, right? We really appreciate all the data center companies, and that extends to beyond just the companies, but the individuals who join the industry organizations such as AFCOM and 7x24, iMasons, and the Data Center Coalition. All those groups have really helped bring NOVA and the success we have. We started before anyone else because we're the largest market in the world, right? And so industry forced us into this, and we responded, and we've done good things. We've learned along the way. Our goal as a college is to fill our regional demand, but also to support our colleagues, right? As this industry has expanded, we have found combining awareness and learn and earn models together have been highly effective. And those awareness campaigns start in secondary education and CTE for administrators and teachers and career counselors, extends through bridge programs and exploration, but it requires industry engagement. We need you to create facility access for educator tours, for student tours, for summer programming, for professional PL. We place educators from other colleges around the country into 1-week externships in a data center, but we can't do that without the support of industry. We are continuing to try and bring in new colleges and develop new programs through collaborative funding. Right now, NOVA is putting together a consortia application through NSF to try and continue funding professional learning and work-based learning programs and building out a national built model that will identify the KSAs for multiple position levels, while we're also expanding the pre-apprenticeship apprenticeship. So we're happy to share, we're happy to engage with industry and collaborate with other colleges. It's been a pleasure to talk with you all today. I thank the panel. Thank you, Robert. And you really can't do it without entities like NIICA, who are going to take what was regional success and to help us scale it nationally, because it's a little beyond a community college's role to be a national entity, right? We can provide leadership and we can support what's worked here, but you need someone like NIICA. We need these trade industry organizations to really get it done and help us scale. So thank you for that. Robert, I know you have the final word.
I no, all the final words were more than I could say. Everyone that's on the call, please reach out to us at info@NIICA, NIICA.org. And, we want to connect you with all the right experts and work together cohesively as a team to like Ali said, is really create careers, create awesome journeys for people to thrive, and for also the communities that they live in to thrive as well. So thank you very much for your time today, and everyone on the panel, thank you for your expertise and more importantly for your passion.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today. A recording of this event, as well as information on upcoming webinars, will be available on NIICA's website. For more information about the National Institute for Industry and Career Advancement and its programs, visit niica.org.